Alright, so we're going to go over how to add Freon to a water cooler. This is a water cooler we keep in the house. It's not keeping the water cold anymore. Now the first thing you want to do is make sure that that compressor is running that's in here. Either you can try and listen real hard, or if you have bad hearing like I do, just kind of reach your hand in there, and if you can feel it vibrating, then you know it's running. Mine's vibrating, I know it's running, so things like that are working. I think it's just fixes it. A couple of things that we need, I got these on Amazon, was this gauge, and you want the gauge to be real small increments, because we want to charge that to about 2 psi, and then it'll also give you a negative, so when you hook it on, if it runs negative, you know it's low. And then we're going to add this piercing valves, and we'll go over a little bit more once we get there. This kit all included was like 20-25 bucks on Amazon. These piercing valves, though, going forward will just be like $6, and then I don't have to buy any more, and I already have the gauge. So this gauge is kind of a special gauge where this side will screw onto our piercing valve, and this side screws onto a regular can of like automotive, you know, our 134A coolant. Now you do want to make sure that that's the right coolant, and you can see that on the sticker down here where it says refrigerant R134A. So just make sure you double check that, because you don't want to add the wrong refrigerant to your fridge. So our first step, I'm going to go through and unscrew these screws so that I can get access to the lines in the back. Alright, so I got the screws out, and then I pulled the back out after you get the screws. It does want to come in. I didn't really want to disconnect all the innards, so I just put like a wedge block in here to hold this piece out. If I take that out, the whole thing wants to shift back in. Ultimately, I need access to this line here. This is our suction line. The suction line is generally copper, whereas the other ones, you know, they're kind of this black thin line. And so we're going to put our piercing valve right on here. So the piercing valve is made of a couple different parts. Here's the port that the gauge will screw into. You can kind of see that. This part here is for the needle, which I'll show you in a minute. And you have these screws here, these black screws, that I'm going to take them off because they're holding on that piece there. You can see a couple pieces in there, and that's to adjust to the different size of pipe. Now when you take these screws out, make sure you don't lose them, so that would ruin your day. Alright, so there's the kit. So I'm going to put this side down. Now on this side you can see there's a washer to form a seal around the thing, and if you can see that there's a little needle in there. So I'm going to come in here, and that's where it pierces. So as I screw that in, you can see that little needle pops out, and that's going to pierce that copper line. And then you back it off, and that'll open up the valve so that it'll travel through here. So when we're all done, we'll tighten this one back up, and we'll be good to go. So first step here is to figure out the right adapter. So it comes with 3 different ones. So the easiest way is just to kind of put that on there, and you can see if it fills in the whole spot. That one doesn't. So we'll go with our next size up. And if you kind of put that on there, it still looks just a little big maybe. So let's try this last one, and the last one. The last one, I think it fits about perfect. So I think we're going to need all 3 of them. So simply, there's actually a little hole right there, and there's a little dimple on here that goes in and holds it in place. So I'm going to put both of these back in the way they were. It's about there. Now when you position this, you want to position it to one where you're not going to get caught on the side, and then you have access to all the parts that you're going to need access to. And so I'm going to position this so it's on this side, and this is here, and then we're going to put the screws in. You know, I'm going to get the screws started, and then we can kind of rotate around to where we actually want it to be. All right, so I got the valve on here with the screws on there. I'm not gonna lie, it was kind of a big pain in the butt to hold that while getting the screws on there. Couldn't really record it because it was just a pain. You would have heard a lot of bad words. So what we're gonna do now is rotate this to where we want the permanent location to be. I don't want it interfering with this when I have to take it in and out. and we need access to the port. And so after you tighten this down and you pierce it, you're not gonna be able to change it again. So I'm gonna put it here, and I'm just gonna reach in and tighten up these screws so that they're exactly where we want them to be. All right, so our piercing valve is on. All 3 screws are nice and tight. Took me a good 5 minutes because it's such a cramped spot, and I'm reaching in through the other side. But we got it, it's on. I did not pierce it yet or do anything else. I did plug it in, and so it's running, and it kind of gets warmed up, gets everything shook up. I guess things moving. So now I'm just gonna start connecting all the hoses. So we looked at this guy earlier, so I'm just gonna connect him. Threads on there. Let me take our other side. And excuse the mess in the background. And we're gonna screw that onto here. And then now that those are all connected, we're gonna go ahead and pierce our line. So I'm gonna reach in from this other side here and put the Allen wrench on there. We're gonna start turning it. It's gonna get tight. Get some stuff out of the way here. Once it gets hard to turn, that means we're hitting the pipe, which I am now. So I'm gonna use the other end so I can get a little more leverage. All right, so that's all the way in. So as you can see, our gauge reads 0, which it should, because we don't have that open yet. So I'm gonna go ahead and give this about 2 turns on here to retract it out of the pipe. That was about a half or a quarter. Up, and you can see just moving it that little bit. Get my hand out of here. That we're pretty low on the Freon. Okay, so if it's below 0, that means it's real low. And what we want to do is get just above to about 2 psi. And so what we do is we'll come over here. We're going to pierce this can. So with that all the way screwed on, you do essentially the same thing we did there. We screwed this all the way in. You can see it pierced, and put some in. And so with this, we're gonna give it a little shake to make sure that everything is, because there's lubricant in the Freon, there's lubricant and stuff. And so you wanna make sure it's not just the gas that's going in there, that it's also the lubricant or the oil. If you get in here and you see a lot of black oil or residue or anything, that probably means that you have a big leak. I did get the stuff with the leak sealer just in case there is a leak, then we can fix it. All right, so to fill this, we're gonna do it in bursts. We don't wanna overfill it, right? And so what we're gonna do is turn it. See it's leaking in, or hopefully going in, and then we'll close it. And then we'll give that a few minutes to reset back, and then we'll test it. All right, so it's been about 5 minutes. That's what I'm gonna do for each one. I give a good burst, wait 5 minutes, and check it again. I'm not gonna video every single one because that would be extremely boring. But we're gonna do a burst here. Let it suck in, let it suck in. And then we're gonna close it. I'm gonna wait another 5 minutes and see where we're at. If you remember right, we were at 20 when we just started on that one, and then we'll see how far up it goes. All right, so I've done it 2 or 3 times. Open, close the valve. The last time I left it on a little too long, and it's up to 6 psi. Now, if you want to release some of the pressure, because the more coolant, the hotter it's going to run, you got to have it at the right pressure, which they say is between like 0 and 5. So I'm just barely above. But if you want to take some out, get a heavy-duty glove and just unscrew this just a little bit. If you listen, you can hear it hiss. And when you hear it hissing, the temperature gauge also goes down. And you can let some out that way. I'll keep far away. Don't put your face anywhere near it. And then once you got a little bit, you just screw that back on, and you can even hear the compressor kind of change a little bit. So now if we let that sit for a few minutes, it'll probably go down just a little bit more. So I'm going to keep it right at that between 3 and 4 psi. Make sure you wear a heavy duty glove, nice thick glove. You don't want to get this refrigerant all over you. So just be careful, always be safe with it. Now that we're done, what I'm going to do here is, with this all the way closed, now we can come through and we're going to close our piercing valve all the way, and that will seal it so we don't have any issues with the Freon leaking out anymore. So kind of close it, get it tight, you know, not crazy. You don't have to crank down on it, but sure it's somewhat tight. And I'm going to put my glove back on. Okay, and I'm going to unscrew this connection. Just make sure your refrigerant here is closed. If you do that, that should drop to 0 because you're taking this off and you're releasing all that pressure. Kind of hard to do with gloves on, but I'd rather be safe than sorry. Put that off to the side. This piercing valve comes with a cap. I'm gonna put the cap on there because you don't want to get crud and stuff in there. So with that on, then go ahead and take my block out. And when I take that out, this whole thing's going to kind of go back into place. I'm going to push this in. Snaps in. I'm going to put the screws back on. And when the screws are back on, I'm going to take it inside, get a water jug on there, and see how it goes. If you have any questions on this, please leave them in the comments below. Any tips, please leave them in the comments below, and hit subscribe.